Good morning and welcome to my kitchen table. I am Anna and I will be your tour guide today as we take a tour on the collective dark night of the soul. I call myself a three-time underworld champion of the dark night of the soul and have spent many thousands of hours in my own dark night processes over the course of my adulthood. And that doesn't even include anything that happened in my childhood. So I know a couple of things about what's happening now, at least philosophically, right? And I'd like to talk to you today about that through my lens of energy medicine, through my lens of spiritual counsel and life transformation work. Before we dive into this deep, heavy topic, I'm just going to ask you and invite you to feel into your experience right now, into your own body. If you're sitting, walking, driving, just notice what's happening in your physical lived experience, in your interior world as well. And if you like, you can simply place a hand on your heart or on your belly or one on each and just breathe in and inhale. And remember where the center of your being lies. Hint, it's in the center of you. It's not out there. It's not in what's happening on the projection screen of our collective lives. It's what's happening inside of you. And by just taking a moment, even if you're driving or washing dishes or cleaning the house, whatever you're doing, you can still drop into that space. I think it helps to get still for a moment, but whatever you need to do, drop in. This is your invitation to drop in because there's some stuff going on and we're going to talk about it right now. So you don't need me to tell you that we are in a collective descent into a dark night period. And in fact, I argue that here in America, we have been descending into darkness at least since the events of 9/11 in 2001. That's 25 years, a quarter of a century. And so wherever this dark night process started doesn't really matter. What does matter for the sake of today is that we are dropping more deeply into it. Okay. If you follow astrology, all of this has been predicted that there is this reckoning that is happening. And part of the dark night is about a personal reckoning. We call it colloquially like a come to Jesus moment. And I do not mean Jesus of the Bible, but I mean this like, whoa, this awakening, this pulling the wool from the eyes. The beautiful thing about the dark night process, which I know from deep lived experience, is that when we can enter the dark night with consciousness, with intentionality, with our eyes open, with our hearts willing to experience the discomfort of the dark night, and discomfort is not really strong enough word to describe the dark night process. The excruciation is much more appropriate, I'd say. But when we can meet that process with a level of consciousness and intentionality, the dark night journey always leads to an expanded state of consciousness when you complete the various processes. Now, you know about the hero's journey, which is Joseph Campbell's map of the dark night of the soul process, and it's embedded into all of our favorite movies and stories. Just think about Star Wars and Luke Skywalker and all of that stuff. Okay, I'm dating myself. And Maureen Murdoch writes about the heroine's journey because it's a little bit different through her lens about how a woman over-identifies with the masculine and has to reclaim her femininity as part of the dark night process. And I have my own model, and I'm going to be talking about it over the next however long. But part of the process, and in fact, the entry process is this descending into darkness, descending into what might feel like chaos, what might feel really scary and destabilizing and nerve-wracking, what might feel like uncharted territory. And all of these things may or may not be true for you individually, If you've been through a dark night of the soul, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, even if it looked a little bit different for you. And there are triggers to the descent, which I'll talk about at another time, like the steps that lead up to the descent. But for right now, because we're kind of free falling, it feels like energetically, I wanted to talk about this descent. And to provide a little piece of hope about this, the potential that happens on the other side of this process. Now, there is no time frame on a dark night of the soul. I have had some that lasted years, 5 years. It's really significant. And when we're talking about the collective, and we've been in these varying stages of descent, maybe for a quarter of a century in America, this is not a short-term thing, and there is no quick fix, and there is no silver bullet to get us out of it. But what does help is bringing this awareness, this intentionality, this willingness to be in the thick of it, in the descent, to not know where the bottom is, and to be willing to be with a process that is completely, completely out of your control. That is one of the lessons of the dark night, is surrender, which we'll talk about at another time. On my walk this morning with Luna, the tunes, I was graced with a beautiful, I believe, Cooper's hawk that decided to soar right in front of me. I was on a small hill descending down, so I was, it was up above me, but I wasn't super down, looking up, and I could see its underbelly and its beautiful wingspan. I could see when it was soaring, the stripes on its tails. It was on its tail. It was absolutely beautiful. And while I see hawks from time to time where I live, it's definitely nowhere near a daily or even weekly occurrence. And so to see a hawk circling in front of me several times, I've literally never seen that in the 5.5, almost 6 years that I've lived here outside of Santa Fe. And so it struck me as being quite significant. This felt like a moment for me to share about one. The obvious thing about birds is to take that higher view, zoom out, see the bigger picture. But I also sense, in the context of what's happening right now, it's a deep invitation for all of us to see through the veil, to cultivate a piercing way of seeing, a piercing vision that can help us to navigate this time, but also ascertain and discern the deeper meaning of what's happening right now inside of ourselves individually, outside of ourselves collectively. Humanity is on a grand adventure, and we're on that free-falling part of the roller coaster ride. But part of this, we're in a spiritual war. Yes, there's war on the planet. Yes, there's stuff happening. I'm not there. I can't speak to it. However, this spiritual war is a summoning. We are being called into spiritual warriorship. We are being called to remember our divinity and to reclaim it from whatever forces, be they the conditioning of our families and cultures or darker forces here on the planet. We're being called to remember our divinity, the God spark within us. And if the G word is triggering, replace that with whatever word you need to. This is the time to find your higher power if you haven't already. And your higher power could be nature. It could be a goddess. It could be your higher self. But now is the time, because this is a crucial step in us leaning into spiritual warriorship. And coming out of relinquishing the chains that have bound our consciousness, understanding the ways in which our consciousness, our attention has been hijacked, and reclaiming that in whatever way that means for you. So I have some parting reflection today. I know I've been going on and on, but your parting reflection, especially inspired by the Cooper's Hawk this morning, is to really contemplate, to get quiet, maybe go sit outside, maybe have a cup of tea with you or your nourishing herbal infusion, and really start to reflect on the deeper meaning of your life. If it's true, and who knows if this is true or not, but if it's true that we all chose to be here at this time, to experience the intensity of this time, to be engaged in this collective dark night of the soul, if it's true that we chose this, why? What is the deeper meaning of your life? How can you place yourself in the context of this great awakening in a way that is meaningful for you? I would love to hear about it in the comments or shoot me an email. I would absolutely love to hear about this, what your reflection brings you to a greater awareness. And as ever, I invite you to find more love in your life today in whatever way you can, whatever that looks like. Perhaps creativity, perhaps a smile as you go out into the world. Can you be a force for love today? Just 1% more.